third-party information. Caller advised she was on a video chat with a doctor on the second floor. He told her to call the police. There had been a shooting.
Had to hide in the closet and make sure that we were safe.
What was going through your mind?
Just fear.
The suspect has told most people to get out. He is looking for a Dr. Phillips.
It's just really, I'm shaking talking about it because I can't believe that this is actually happening right here in Tulsa.
The door just kind of slowly opened. I thought it was a nurse or something like that, just coming in to tell the doctor something. And he slid through the door and fired 2 shots at the doctor and then pointed it at me. And all I could ask him was, please don't.
Hospital entrance, and Dustin, if you could just pan with me slowly to the right.
He came in with the intent to kill Dr. Phillips and anyone who got in his way.
We so wanted to be able to utilize our skills and training to save these precious lives. To the family of Mr. Love, I'm so sorry we couldn't save you. We are grieving with you.
So not only is it a shock, it is the ultimate loss for St. Francis.
At a hospital in Tulsa, Oklahoma, a shooter deliberately targeted a surgeon.
I will not fill that void, but I will do everything I can to be there.
It just felt like he wasn't home yet. And we've been waiting to welcome him back.
She was a tremendous physician. She was a tremendous classmate and daughter and friend and sister, and she meant a lot to so many people.
June 1st. It's the day that marks 1 year since a gunman stormed into the St. Francis Natalie building, killing 4 innocent people and himself. I'm Sarah Whaley.
And I'm Shay Rozzi. We watched with you as the tragic news came in. Some we just showed you again. And we showed you then how the community came together in the following days and weeks.
In this 30-minute special, we are reflecting on the heartache that followed the shooting and looking toward the future with hope.
That's what keeps us all together. And first, we want to remember the 4 innocent lives lost. A patient who sacrificed his own life, a medical assistant who had a servant's heart, and 2 talented doctors who dedicated their lives to healing others.
73-year-old William Love was with his wife at her appointment. His family says William heard the gunshots and knew his wife Deborah would not be able to escape the building on her own. The retired Army First Sergeant and Vietnam War veteran sacrificed his life for her.
40-year-old medical assistant Amanda Glenn is described by her family as a devoted wife, mother, sister, and daughter who had the brightest smile, kindest heart, and always put others first. She was the happiest just being with her family, her husband, and her 2 sons. Her oldest son, Gabe Glenn, told us at the time,
"She loved anything me and my brother did. She loved anything we loved. That's it. I mean, that's who she was."
48-year-old Dr. Stephanie Husen was a sports and internal medicine specialist with the Warren Clinic in Tulsa. She completed her undergraduate degree at the University of Oklahoma and was a member of the Chi Omega sorority. She then graduated from Oklahoma State University Center for Health Services Medical School. Her family describes her as caring, loving, and giving of herself. They encourage people who see something to say something and to contact your legislator to let them know gun safety is important to you. Their statement reads in part, quote, "Our Stephanie did not deserve to die at work caring for her patients on June 1st, 2022, nor do over 120 people a day in our country." It goes on to say, "Because our family is seeking to raise awareness and find solutions to stop gun violence, we're trying to educate ourselves on the issues surrounding this problem."
The fourth victim killed, 59-year-old Dr. Preston Phillips. The Harvard Medical School graduate was a board-certified orthopedic surgeon who focused on spinal surgery, joint replacement, and reconstruction. He served on the board of the John Hope Franklin Reconciliation Center in Tulsa, was an avid tennis player, devoted husband, and father. Several organizations are honoring him for his work here and around the world. And I had the honor of talking with the widow of Dr. Preston Phillips for her first television interview.
I can't imagine the year it's been for her. How's she holding up?
She says it's still really difficult to understand what happened, but she says all of the support gives her strength. This is one of the last pictures Melody Phillips took with her husband, Dr. Preston Phillips. They had just celebrated her birthday in Portugal.
As a husband, just very considerate, very busy, but always very considerate of me and our time together and making that a priority when he could.
Melody says she met the man she calls a gentle giant when they were both undergraduate students at Emory University in Atlanta. They later married while he was at Harvard Medical School and went on to have 3 children.
He was overjoyed to become a dad. It meant so much to him.
How would he be described as a friend and as a doctor?
Preston as a friend, when you become his friend, you become his family. So we have so many extended family members that are friends that we, are very close to. Some former patients, as a matter of fact. And that kind of leads into his role as a physician too, because he made sure that he gave each patient that personal attention.
That's one of the reasons it came as such a shock that one of his patients would enter the Natalie building carrying out the shooting that took the lives of William Love, who was there for an appointment for his wife, Amanda Glenn, who worked in the office, Dr. Stephanie Husen, who also treated patients in the same clinic, and Dr. Phillips.
How were you notified about what happened that day?
I was actually in Atlanta. I'm from Georgia. My older sister had knee surgery. I promised to come out and help her after her surgery. I had a friend call me to ask if Preston was okay, that there was something happening, something going on the St. Francis campus. Her husband's a physician also. And of course, I had no idea. I called him and he didn't answer. And then I started getting phone calls from different friends, checking in to make sure that he was okay.
Melody learned he wasn't okay, that he did not survive. She got back to Tulsa that night and let their kids know too, so they could come back home as well. She says the heartache was unbearable. And every time she hears of another mass shooting, she relives her nightmare.
My heart jumps because I know that someone is not coming home. A family is having to deal and process with that knowledge that they've lost someone in such a sudden, instant, and tragic way.
1 year later, she tries not to focus on the pain of her loss, but on the purpose of her husband's life. She started wearing his wedding ring on her necklace.
Do you feel closer to him when you have that on?
I do.
Yeah.
And she's touched by all the organizations honoring her husband, including local tennis leagues where he was a friendly yet fierce competitor, the John Hope Franklin Center for Reconciliation, where he served on the board, and the American Orthopedic Association, recognizing him as a pillar in their medical field, mentoring others and improving lives during medical mission trips to Africa.
His impact is all over the world. It's not just here in the States. Everywhere he went, he touched lives, and I'm just honored and humbled by the recognition that he's gotten, and thankful too. I'm thankful to those organizations and people around the world that have reached out to me and that loved him, because I know that his work meant something, and it was a job well done. And I'm proud of that, and my kids are proud of it as well.
You can see it makes her heart proud. Many in the community felt the heartache from losing all 4 people. It's a pain Tulsa Mayor G.T. Bynum still feels.
When we lose someone that we love unexpectedly, an anniversary can be a day of despair and pain. I want the families of Amanda Glenn and Stephanie Husen, William Love and Preston Phillips, as well as the entire team here at St. Francis, to know that there are people all across this community who are thinking about you.
As we all watched and feared the worst, officers rushed to St. Francis with the hope of saving lives. I talked with the first officers inside the building that day about what went through their minds as they went in after the shooter.
314 on 97 with 0372.
A quick pause, and then you hear it in Officer Carter McQuigg's voice.
Neither one of us had a shield.
He and Officer Jonathan Grafton ran into the Natalie Medical Building without their police shield.
We have the unknown, so when those doors are opening, we don't know what's going to be seen when those doors open.
An interview last November that I will always remember, as I said with Officers Grafton and McQuigg and the other first responding officer, Micah Baxter. I remember thinking about their bravery.
Didn't know if it was going to be an ambush or what we were walking into.
Why'd you go then?
It's the quickest, easiest way.
We have broken glass. We're not seeing anybody. Okay, we're going to have to clear this.
Description: black male, tall, skinny, dark blue or black jacket, blue jeans, and the gun is going to be a rifle.
Yep, we copy.
They told me what they saw and felt in those moments.
There was no movement, no screaming, no anything else that would tell us where to go.
Scary quiet.
Eerily quiet.
Grafton was giving announcements that Tulsa police were on scene, and then we heard a shot fired, and Grafton immediately started making entry into the hallways.
What's it like to hear that shot fired, to go from it being silent to hearing the gunshot?
Scary.
Pretty crazy, yeah.
I think it's a reality check.
Because now you know it's real.
Yeah, because when we heard the gunshot, it was, let's go. But it was also, this may be it.
On the radio, you hear what happened next.
All right, after 34, we're at exam room. After shots fired, we see blood on the ground. Send medical up, send medical up, send medical up. We have 2 down, still not found the suspect.
Tulsa Chief of Police Wendell Franklin told me what officers McQuigg, Grafton, and Baxter did that day was vital in saving lives.
What those 3 officers were doing was they were painting a picture for all of the other responding officers.
And for their bravery, each of the 3 were awarded a Medal of Valor.
As I said at our awards banquet, they were the tip of the spear. They were the ones that landed on the moon for the first time, and they are the ones that are calling out what they're seeing.
That helped guide 20 other officers who ran into the Natalie Medical Building as well. Some of those officers finding the man who killed 4 people and then himself.
The shooter is 10-7. He has both guns in his hand.
Chief Franklin told me all responding officers were heroes that day, and he says he knows that if any of them had been there first, they would have taken the very same action.
And beyond the Medals of Valor, 6 other officers were given the Chief's Award for their response. 14 were awarded department commendations.
We're hearing from U.S. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen 1 year later. In a news release, Mullen said, quote, "We remember those lost and honor the brave Tulsa police officers who ran into unknown horror without hesitation to secure the building and save lives." Senator Mullen went on to say the hearts of Oklahomans remain heavy with grief.
I heard my colleagues say, "Ryan, get your keys, there's a shooting."
An emergency room physician who tried to save the St. Francis victims. Coming up, her heartache following the shooting and the strength it takes to keep moving forward. Welcome back to this Fox 23 special, St. Francis Strong, Heartache and Hope. Dr. Ryan Parker captured the attention of the entire nation when she publicly apologized with tears in her eyes for not being able to save just one victim.
Though all of us know there was really nothing to apologize for. Fox 23's Rick Marinon sat down with Dr. Parker now 1 year later to see how she and her team are still processing the tragedy.
She broke our hearts
Frustrated, she and her team couldn't save at least one.
We so wanted to be able to utilize our skills and training to save these precious lives. To the family of Mr. Love, I'm so sorry we couldn't save you. We are grieving with you.
1 year later, Dr. Ryan Parker says June 1st was not about her. She is just one face representing the heartbreak, the pain, and the frustrations, and now the healing of that day.
I wasn't the one that was traumatized that day. My heart goes out and it breaks for, and it gives me resolve to support them, our folks that were in the clinic that day, that were in the Natalie surgical building. So I almost feel even guilty talking about anything that affected me. It was minimal, my trauma.
While 5 o'clock on a weekday for many means time to head home, there really is no closing time for one of the busiest emergency departments in the city.
I remember vividly that afternoon.
Recently promoted from head of the emergency department to associate chief medical officer, it was one of Parker's jobs on June 1st to help secure the doors for lockdown and then come up with a plan to treat those injured.
I heard my colleagues say, "Ryan, get your keys, there's a shooting." And it's just, the adrenaline just kicks in, and kind of thankful for my experience as an emergency physician, you just go into work mode.
Though the victims would be in the next building, Parker and the emergency team waited in the ER with tools, techniques, and expertise, ready to encounter what other emergency rooms across the country have already dealt with: a mass shooting.
We had people coming back after they had left. Everybody just so willingly came back, and so we had more than enough, but we didn't know what to be prepared for, so we wanted to be prepared for anything.
An early estimate of over a dozen victims became 4. Only one had any signs of life. 73-year-old retired Army Sergeant William Love. Police say Love held the door shut during the shooting to give others, including his wife, time to escape. In his final moments, he would be pushed through the doors of the St. Francis ER, but he didn't make it.
When we all just realized that, no, that was it. We did our best and we tried to save Mr. Love, but we weren't going to be getting any more victims. I do think there was this collective sigh of, oh gosh, we realized what that meant. And at the time we didn't know who the victims were, but over the course of the next several hours we started to kind of put the pieces together in our brain, even when it hadn't been released yet. And I think the moment of just, then it hits you that it's personal.
Once there was no one left to save, it was their turn to process, grieve, and mourn.
It's not about me, it was about my team. So I have been more focused on, the colleagues that I work with and getting them through it. I'm fine. It's obviously been a year, and I think that the grief process is something that's ongoing.
In the 2 previous years before the shooting, I brought you multiple stories with Dr. Parker and others at St. Francis, exhausted and already heartbroken from the pandemic. Then this, my final question after 2 tough crises after the other: how and why do you come back?
Never, not once, did it make me not want to come back here. If anything, it just reiterated and gave me a fire for, we have got to respond to this. We have got to help our community. I think when you talk about a healthcare system or, a school, what makes those types of shootings so hard to deal with is that those are sacred places where you're supposed to be able to feel safe. But I still feel safe here. This is still a place where people come to help other people. It's still a place where people are coming to me to ask for help. And it reiterated that we need to educate ourselves and evolve and be able to treat that pain and hurt, whether it comes from, mind, body, and soul, whether it comes from a mental hurt or a physical hurt. It just gave me inspiration that we've got work to do and we can make a difference.
We are also hearing from U.S. Senator James Lankford as we remember the tragedy. In a news release, Lankford said, quote, "No one should experience senseless acts of violence, especially in a healthcare facility meant for healing." Senator Lankford went on to praise law enforcement for their quick response to the shooting.
The day was like any other day. One of our officers was traveling on the east side of the campus, and he gets flagged down by one of the nurses. And she's stuttering a little bit. She says, "Active shooter inside now."
St. Francis will never be the same after that day. I'm talking with the head of security about what she remembers and the security changes made since. Our Fox 23 special, St. Francis Strong, Heartache and Hope, continues now.
The mass shooting on the hospital campus changed Tulsa and St. Francis forever.
I talked with the security director about what she remembers about that day and the security changes that have happened since.
June 1st, 2022.
The day was like any other day. We have our routine calls that we do, whether it's escorting patients, running money bags, just things that security officers do. Nothing out of the ordinary.
That all changed at 4:52 p.m.
We got the call when one of our officers was traveling on the east side of the campus, just doing his rounding, checking hospital to hospital, and he gets flagged down by one of the nurses. And she's stuttering a little bit, and she says, "Active shooter inside now." He heard shots, and he went in.
At the same time, calls started flooding 911.
Suspect has told most people to get out. He is looking for a Dr. Phillips.
One year later, after doing an outside evaluation of the health system's security practices, St. Francis Security Director Julie Harris and her team have implemented hundreds of measures, both big and small, to improve security. Harris says the work started the very next day.
We met with employee groups, and I'm going to say with a 10,000 employee base, I started building more relationships. I wanted them, if you didn't feel comfortable talking to security, I want you to feel comfortable now.
That level of comfort has allowed more employees to take their concerns to security right away.
If somebody calls in and they think a patient might be a little angry or might be upset or might be a problem, they call and let us know.
And that is when, Harris says, her team starts looking into the person.
It's sort of a threat assessment, if you will, and we're doing that ahead of the game.
Are you having to do this often, or?
We've been doing it a lot, yes.
For some perspective, the entire year of 2019, they did 19 threat assessments. Last year, the year of the shooting, they did 44. And this year, in just 5 months, they've already done 31. And any threats made directly on campus are taken even more seriously. Harris, a retired Tulsa police major, is constantly in contact with TPD. Chief Wendell Franklin told me it's a collaborative effort.
We have been a lot more interactive with the healthcare systems in the Tulsa area now.
In fact, we've told you about multiple arrests made over the last year for threats at local hospitals. At least 3 of them were at St. Francis campuses.
We're more aggressive in seeking out to get those people off the street.
In addition, St. Francis security officers are doing more training and will soon all have body cameras as well.
An interesting fact about the body cams is much like having the presence of a canine, having that body cam there and turned on has shown to be a de-escalator.
As for direct hospital changes that you may notice,
we're talking about mirrors in the corners. We're talking about additional badges. That's this door right here. You used to be able to walk in. You can't do that now.
And certain areas of the facility are now restricted, unlike before.
We've battened down the hatch, so to speak, and we've secured all those areas.
It's interesting to see all those changes. Now, the second floor of the Natalie building has been closed for the past year, but that will soon change.
I can't imagine any other path forward other than to have that clinic just go dark.
That was St. Francis CEO Dr. Cliff Robertson the day after the shooting last year. He said the second floor would never be used again.
But now Robertson says it will be heavily renovated so the doctors who have been scattered across multiple buildings can finally work as a team once again.
We'll be moving forward with the redesign and reconstruction of that space, because we have physicians that are wanting to be back together as a single group.
A new memorial will be built on the first floor of the Natalie building. The new second floor will have no sign of the old clinic.
Thank you so much for watching this Fox 23 special report, St. Francis Strong, Heartache and Hope.
1 year later, we have not forgotten the victims whose tragic deaths changed our community forever.